around the country, we're seeing some horrendous things that are happening. As it relates to sexual assault, we know that 1 out of 5 college freshman females will be sexually assaulted on a college campus. The unfortunate reality is a third, 1 out of every 3, is perpetrated by athletes. When we look at some of the recent cases, we're going to talk about those things that happened just within the matter of the last couple of weeks. And the reason I'm here with you today is to make sure that you don't end up in any of those binds. So let's talk about it real quick. Let's talk about the definition of what rape is. I want you to burn this in your mind, because there are some occasions where these things pop up and they were unintended expectations, unintended outcomes for situations that we thought were okay going in, but they really weren't. So sexual violence includes forced sex, of course, right? Spouse, partner, stranger, acquaintance. When we look at rape, really what's at the crux of it is consent. And so when we look at consent, it is the lack of that becomes criminal when touch is not agreed upon. Capacity is critical to consent. So let's look at it. Say consent. Can't hear you. Consent. Here we go. Let's look at it. Consent does not exist when the targeted person is a minor. So let's say we're 18 years old and there's a 13-year-old out there. I don't care how old you think she looks, but if she's 13 in many states around the country, that's rape. The person is developmentally disabled. I have to tell you a story that, this is my confession time, Coach. I feel like you're a parent. I'm going to tell you a few things that you only tell your parents after you're an adult, because you know they can't whoop you, right? You can't make me run laps. Well, when we were at West Virginia, and he was a coach there was this one young lady that used to come up on the football floor over at Towers. Remember that? And her name was Nadia, and I think she was Iran. But she would come up on the floor, and I always knew that there was something odd about her. She kind of walked like her equilibrium was off, and she kind of leaned to the side. She was kind of lethargic. And she would come up on the football floor, Coach, and perform oral favors. And there were certain rooms, athletes' rooms, where 8 people piled in the room. As I look back on that occurrence and her condition and her state, I believe she fell in that category. But several of my teammates had, I have to include myself because I didn't say anything. And I'm ashamed of that. I didn't say, hey, stop, don't do this. We had other occurrences that happened on the floor, but if I look back on that, I would have to say that she was developmentally disabled, and if somebody had brought that out, those guys would have been in trouble. Drugged, intoxicated, under the influence. This is a thing that happens over and over again. We get involved with somebody, they get intoxicated out at the nightclub, and then all of a sudden we end up in that spot, and we decide to go through with something, but they're really intoxicated. They wake up the next morning and say, hey, I never intended for any of that to happen. If they press the issue, physically helpless, not conscious. They change their mind. Oh, this is a big ticket one. We're cool. We've been kicking it. We may have had sex before, and then all of a sudden we're out, and then we go back to their dorm, our dorm, an apartment, a house. They take all their clothes off. I'm just going to speak real talk with you. We have our clothes off. We're in bed with them. And then all of a sudden, they say no. Well, you can be angry, but the best thing to do is get up and walk out. Not, oh, remember last week, baby? We did the do then, so why not what's up now? We press that issue then, we're in this category. And sometimes that happens to people. So let's take a look at this. Other things that happen. When people can't take being put down, they stalk. They show up when they're not invited. They end up in places where they know that person will be. To leer in, to peer in, to look at people when they're disposed or maybe even with other people is a criminal offense. The first one, they call that menacing. That can get us in trouble. Exhibitionism. This is a big one because everybody's into selfies and things like this. To send explicit pictures of yourself to someone else not only is foolish, but it's criminal. The other thing, illicit photographs or distributing photos of someone else. I just need to really bring this to your attention so that you are clearly aware that these are some of the things that could get us caught up. Now, let's go here. Sexual violence. It can be verbal, it can be physical, it can be in writing. It breaks the trust of a targeted person, makes them feel unsafe. So let me ask you this question, Coach. Would you recruit these two? Jordan Hicks has better stats than C.J. Mosley, and he's a heck of a team player, works very hard. Would you recruit them? Would you? Okay, so you know the bottom line. Let's take a look.
Football players involved in a possible sexual assault early this morning. They have been suspended from the team and sent home.
She said she'd met them at a bar where she was drinking very heavily. She'd invited them back to her room, and that's when she said she was assaulted. Reporting the players who have been sent home by Coach Brown are Case McCoy and Jordan Hicks. Hicks was a preseason All-American at linebacker who was injured back in September and hasn't played since. Case McCoy is the backup quarterback who's seen some playing time but is perhaps best known for being former Longhorn QB Colt McCoy's little brother.
According to the arrest report, Blue and Figueroa admitted to allegations they slipped something in a female student's drink Saturday, then took her back to Figueroa's dorm room inside Pearson Hall, where police say the girl claims she was raped. The university responded by kicking both men off the football team and suspending them from school. In a statement, UM President Donna Shalala stressed a zero-tolerance policy, saying, quote, "There is no confusion about our responsibility as a university. We will fully and compassionately support the victim of sexual assault. I have spoken to her myself and reassured her of our full support."
Now, again, in this particular case, that young woman contacted police. Both Blue and Figueroa are out of jail on bond, but again, they cannot return to campus. They have been banned from all University of Miami facilities and activities.
Why would someone make the decision to rape another person? Why? Frustrated, sexually frustrated, right? Okay. What? Substance abuse. A lot of times we look at the majority of sexual assault cases, alcohol is involved with a perpetrator as well as the victim, right? Okay. A lot of times it's because young athletes have been conditioned from a very young age to think that certain standards and rules, and this is an unfortunate reality, don't apply to them. Because people are doting on them. They get away with stuff, not going to class, not turning in homework, having other people do their homework, and these kind of things happen over and over again. So when they get in a situation where a young lady says no, what's up with that, right? And then it has nothing to do with intimacy. It's about power and control and dominance over another person. Now, we have that happen more often than you can imagine. Would you recruit this guy? 6'3", 230 pounds, he runs a 40 and 4.4. Would you recruit him? Just on that alone, 3.0 student. Would you recruit him? Pretty much, right? Okay. Take a look at this. We're going to transition and really talk to you about an actual case that went international, viral, Steubenville. This young man is Malik Richmond from Steubenville, Ohio. He was involved in a situation where he was dropped off at a house party. His boy left him, and then alcohol started flowing. And after the alcohol started to flow, then his boy, the quarterback, who had this young lady from West Virginia that was interested in him, decided that he was going to turn her out. So after she got drunk, she trusted him. She liked him. She thought he liked her, but he only saw her as an object. He felt entitled. It was all about dominance and control, not intimacy, care, and regard. And so after she got drunk and she put herself in his presence, Malik is stuck out there because his ride left and the alcohol started flowing, and he said, "Hey, Malik, want some of this?" Malik, not wanting to be the odd person out, I'm in. How many times does that happen? We know we shouldn't be doing something and we jump in because we don't want to be the odd person out. Well, it's got serious consequences. And then there was even a guy who began to talk about what was happening in real time. He had a full scholarship to Ohio State, and I want you to listen to what he says about how they treated this girl. They treated her like an animal. So I want you to pay attention to the left side of the screen. And I want you to watch what this guy says. And this is an image of this young lady who was sexually victimized by somebody she thought cared about her, who also turned her out with other people.
This is the funniest thing ever.
Did you throw up in the street?
And Mark's carpet.
On whose?
Mark.
Mark Cole?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I swear. Yeah, it seemed like they're gonna walk in the room, there's gonna be a dead body just laying there. Trish gonna be like, it wasn't me, man. You didn't see how they carried her out. You act like she's Jesus Christ coming back from the dead.
She was getting shot. He was like pissing on her. I forgot to tell you that she was in the middle of the street.
They peed on her. That's how you know she's dead, because someone pissed on her. I'm gonna get real. She's deader than Andy Reid's son. I'm sorry. That's how. What
the hell's wrong with you?
That's how.
Eagles.
She's deader than Chris Henry.
Wow. He did, guy. I forgot.
What is wrong with you?
She's deader than OJ's wife.
What if we went in there while I was videotaping it and we were just beating the shit out of him? No. How funny would that be?
No.
And is it really rape because you don't know if she wanted to?
Let me get
She might have.
Doesn't he have it quite wrong? If you don't know whether she said yes, then the answer is no, right? Was she intoxicated? Was she intoxicated? Passed out? Can she give consent? No, she can't. Does it matter whether or not she drank herself into that stupor? Is she responsible for being a victim? Is she? No. The guys had the decision to make, and they made the wrong one.
Trent Mace would like to say.
I would truly like to apologize to.
Well, Malik was going to come here today, but I got a call that he was not coming because he couldn't come, because his parole officer said that if he came, the judge might see it as him trying to seek publicity to sway the judge to make a different decision. Because you see, they applied, they filed to the court. He got out of jail in January. He did 1 year. His boy, Trent Mays, has 2. He got an additional year because not only did he sexually assault this young lady, but he took photographs and video image with his cell phone and put it out there on social media. That's an additional felony, which we call pandering obscenity. So Malik got 1 year, got out in January. The other kid is still in jail. Malik was coming, but his parole officer said no, because they had last applied to have the registration restriction removed in July on his birthday, and the courts rejected it. Malik has to report as a sex offender until he's 37 years old for the next 20 years. What does that mean? First of all, many of you said, with the current circumstances, coaches, you would not recruit him. That's how many people feel around the country. He was just up at Ohio State, and he clocked a 4.4 electronic time at 6'3 and a half, 230. And the coach just walked over to him and said, hey, good job. You keep working hard. That was it. The next 20 years. So even if he goes to college and he gets a degree, there are certain careers he'll never be able to obtain. I don't care what his grades were. He'll never be a teacher. He'll never work around children.